You're watching 12 WKRC TV, a new generation of news. This is 12 Newsmakers.
Boston helped give democracy to the U.S. Maybe it can help give it to the Catholic Church.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. The Roman Catholic sex abuse scandal, which has been festering for a year and a half, broke open in an ugly way again this past week in Cincinnati. On Sunday, the Archbishop told parishioners at St. John Baptist in Tip City about the suspension of 2 more priests for abuse charges reaching back decades. On Monday, lawyers announced more survivors are joining lawsuits against the priest of the Archdiocese. And on Wednesday, Elder High School removed the photo of former principal Father Thomas Strittmatter as charges piled up. For Catholics, this has been a dispiriting experience. One response, the voice of the faithful, began in Boston, like the scandal itself, but has now spread to 181 parishes across the country and counts more than 30,000 members. One of the original conveners of the organization is Jim Muller, a doctor who heads the cardiology research department at Massachusetts General Hospital. In the early 1970s, Dr. Muller was co-founder of Physicians for Nuclear Disarmament, which won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1985. He is a lifelong Catholic, a graduate of Notre Dame. An uncle was a priest, and an aunt was a Sister of Charity of Cincinnati. When Dr. Muller was in Cincinnati 10 days ago to address a meeting at St. Francis de Sales, I talked with him just after he had met with Archbishop Pilarczyk. I began by asking how he understands the issues facing the church.
Living in Boston with, what do we have, hundreds of priests, thousands of victims. At first it was a tidal wave. We didn't know what it was. But we finally began to understand that part of it's priests who are abusive and part of it's how it was mismanaged. If you take the priests who are abusive side of it, there's something interesting about it, that it's not really a large number of priests. It's 2 to 3% of priests. It's hundreds because there were thousands of priests over decades. But it's a relatively small number of priests. It's about the same number that's in other religions, or it's about the same number that's in Boy Scout leaders. The difference with Catholicism is actually the mismanagement, because when one of these people was caught, instead of being put out of that position, they were transferred to a new killing fields. So that, in a way, our organization is dealing more with that mismanagement issue than it is with the direct abuse.
How would you evaluate the response of the bishops in the past year, since their meeting in Dallas in June 2002, to the survivors and victims of sex abuse?
I would say the response by the diocese to survivors is highly variable. There are some dioceses which have done quite well, and there are some which have done terribly. In Boston, we have a new Archbishop, O'Malley. What he did in the last diocese he was in is he cast aside the legal issues and he said, we're going to pay the survivors money because they need it for their health care, and I don't care what the insurance settlements are. It's a moral obligation. We're going to do it. And he did it in Fall River. He even sued the insurance company of the church, which had been failing to honor its money that it was supposed to pay to the survivors. So we're looking for him to come into Boston, where there are thousands of survivors, and do the right thing. I believe he will. On the other hand, we've got people who, when a survivor calls the church line, they get a lawyer answers and takes their data. That's not the kind of church that Jesus Christ would have founded.
And how would you evaluate their response to what you describe as the mismanagement issues that were exposed?
There's a bishop in Long Island who has banned Voice of the Faithful without even talking with us, without even trying to find out what we're doing. Other members of the hierarchy, Cardinal George, Archbishop Beekline of Indianapolis, Archbishop Pilarczyk, have been wonderful. I had a wonderful meeting today with the Archbishop here in Cincinnati.
In April 2002, this archdiocese said that there were 5 priests that they refused to name that were out in ministry. Since then, one of those has been identified, but the other 4 are still sort of hanging in the wind. What did you say to the Archbishop about that?
If the situation is, as you describe it, that there are 4 priests who have accusations against them of sexual abuse of minors, and they are not named, then it isn't just 4 people hanging out in the wind, it's all the priests. I said this to the Archbishop. I said, if you have that kind of situation where it's acknowledged that there are 4 priests who have these charges against them, that casts a shadow over all priests, an unfair shadow over all the good priests who it's in their interest that we have 3 goals of our organization: support survivors, support priests of integrity, and work for structural change. Under the goal of supporting priests of integrity, we would like to see all such charges investigated with due process. People that are innocent should be sent back to work free of charges. People that are guilty should be dealt with. And the public and the faithful should be told that you have 100% assurance that the priests that are serving you now are innocent priests. He did say that he's struggling in a legal environment because there are charges and countercharges by 2 groups of lawyers. And I did say to him that at some point, lawyers can't solve problems. They're trained in worst-case assumptions, and they're trained for battle. And sometimes you have to just solve it and tell the lawyers, this is the way that we're going to solve this. And he understood that. And I believe that he wants to solve this.
In Dallas last June, the bishops set up a National Lay Advisory Commission to oversee the implementation of the reforms that they had instituted in Dallas and to take a historical look at this problem. One of the members of that commission, Bill Burley, is from our locality and was a guest here on Newsmakers a couple of weeks ago. How would you evaluate the effectiveness of that commission?
I haven't seen much from the National Review Commission. I think their final report has not come out yet. We have great hopes for it, although there's one weakness that they have that is one of the reasons we founded Voice of the Faithful. The people on that commission are appointed by the bishops. So how can you have a powerful outside voice if you're dependent on the people you're reporting on? I mean, how well do any of us do providing a report card on our boss?
But isn't the hierarchical, top-down style exactly the way the Roman Catholic Church does operate?
We have authority, I would say, at the Pope to start with, who delegates a lot to the bishops, who are very, very powerful in their own right. We have an authoritarian structure embedded in an American democracy. Our diagnosis, when we were confronted with the massive sexual abuse scandal in Boston and how terribly it was managed, our diagnosis was that the core problem here was that absolute power. And so we decided that to fix the church, to help get a better church, there had to be more of a voice for the laity. And we looked around at what we were doing in the church basement, and we were practicing our own democracy. We were discussing things, we were voting, we had consensus, we had resolutions. And then, of course, people said the Catholic Church is not a democracy. And they said, don't use the word democracy in front of the hierarchy. They don't, since the French Revolution, it's not a popular word.
Will this take a change in doctrine?
The Archbishop today said to me, we had a wonderful conversation. We even agreed to meet again. We're going to try and meet again because I think we have a lot to say to each other, and the dialogue will be good. But at the end, he said, look, I have something difficult to say to you. I don't like your motto, which is keep the faith, change the church.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, was your motto.
His trouble with the motto is that we shouldn't be changing the core doctrine of the church. And I said, we don't want to change the core doctrine of the church. We want to change the more administrative side of the church. We want to change decisions that involve the laity in which they currently have no say. We don't want to change the Nicene Creed. We don't want to vote on the 2 infallible statements that have been made. But when a school closing is going to occur in the inner city that involves lay people that have been working there, we'd like a strong voice of the laity to be at the table.
One of the things that the Voice of the Faithful has not done is taken a position on issues that a lot of people think are related to this larger sex abuse question and controversy. For example, married priesthood, women's ordination. Why haven't you taken a position on those?
We've been called the voice of the fearful, that we're afraid to take a stand for women priests or married priests or the Latin Mass on the other side. And we purposely avoided those issues. There are groups that are advocating various changes along those lines. But our concept was that we needed Congress, not the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. We needed a Congress that would accommodate all points of view. We invited many conservative Catholic thinkers to our initial convention. They didn't come. I mean, we're having a hard time convincing conservative and traditional Catholics that we are not exclusively progressive leftist Catholics. Most of our members, if you get to know the 30,000 members, are centrists. Most Catholics are centrists. The center's been quiet in the Catholic Church. What we're trying to do is create this Congress-like for the Catholic laity and for the people who, like my uncle, is a traditional Catholic priest, didn't want to change the Latin Mass. For people that want things to stay the same, my argument is, please join Voice of the Faithful and express that view, because we're going to listen to all the views.
What do you think has been the impact of Voice of the Faithful in the past 14 months or so?
It's given hope to a lot of people that have been shocked and horrified by the sexual abuse scandal. That's the biggest thing we've done. We haven't come out with some new policy yet. This is a newborn with very good DNA that's going to grow. When it gets big enough, it'll have something to say.
Thank you very much for being here today. If you would like to learn more about the Voice of the Faithful, check out their website at votf.org. Now stay tuned. After the break, the new chairman of Cincinnati Bell, Jack Cassidy, for a discussion about the role of corporations in the life of the city. Welcome back. For over a century, the fortunes of corporations have been integral to determining the fate and shape of the modern city. Over the past few months, that has been very clear in Cincinnati, whether it's the question of building a new parking garage for Kroger or subsidizing a new consolidated headquarters for Convergys. For over a century, one of the key corporations in Cincinnati has been Cincinnati Bell. This morning, I am joined by Jack Cassidy, the new president and chief operating officer of Cincinnati Bell. Formerly, he was the COO of Local Cincinnati Bell Operations and president of Cincinnati Bell Wireless. Jack, welcome to Newsmakers.
Dan, thank you.
Let's start out with sort of the business side of this. How many people in the Cincinnati area are employed by Cincinnati Bell?
Yeah, we have 3,000 full-time employees, okay, and we have about 1.2 million customers and about 600,000 households.
Okay, and the coverage area
is actually we go out to near Lawrenceburg. We go out down to Dry Ridge, Kentucky, down to the 71-75 split, and then we go about as far up as Mason in a residential area where we're joined by Sprint United up there. But for those customers in Mason, we'd like to service you too.
Okay. You know, one of the things that is clear is that telecommunications is a rapidly changing industry. How does a telephone company, a communications company that's fundamentally a telephone company, how do you compete against the really big guys? How do you carve out a space?
Right. Well, we compete with 6 national competitors in our wireless business. You've got in local access, just in the local telephone company, that used to be a monopoly. You've got 43 interconnect companies that compete with us just even in local dial tone. Long distance, you've got all those things, the MCIs and the AT&Ts of the world. I think where we can be of value is, first of all, we're locally Cincinnati based, so we live, work, and play here. Our kids go to school with your kids. We go to same churches, same everything. And, I think where we understand the needs of the local Cincinnati customer, perhaps better than a national customer. What we try to do is we try to give people a value of across the line of our products. So what we call our custom connections bundles or value-added services bundles, you can have wireless, you can have Zoomtown, you can have local access, you can have Cincinnati Bell any distance. you can have all those things together in a bundle, what we call a bundle, that'll cost you about 15 to 20% less than if you bought everything separately.
One of the areas that you really tried to push into was broadband area with Broadwing.
Right.
The tech bubble burst, tech
Yeah.
industry changed, Broadwing collapsed.
Right.
And now you're back to being Cincinnati Bell. What's the long-run implication from that? The way I read things out of the Business Courier is that you end up with about $2.5 billion of debt.
Right.
What's the implication for the company? What's the implication for the customer?
Yeah, well, in the technical term of that is called delevering. Okay, we've got more house payment to make than we feel comfortable doing. Now that said, the company is extremely profitable on a local basis because of those value-add services bundles we talk about. We have the overwhelming share in long distance and in wireless and in local access and also in our broadband ADSL Zoomtown play here. So given the fact that we have a very good cash flow situation, we can more than adequately make the debt payments on this $2.5 billion. And then we have to begin to delever or pay down that debt. At the same time, the market isn't growing around us, okay? The dot-com bubble did break. All those broadband things happen in broadband. The overall economy has contracted in Cincinnati. It's not in expansion. We're landlocked geographically. We can't expand any place. So therefore, we have to think about ways to grow, and the only ways to grow are either new products or new geographies. So the long-term implication is certainly pay down your bills. It's no different than you or I making our house payment. We got to do that. But at the same time, thinking about, geez, what are the ways that we can grow beyond what it is that we have now?
You know, for those of us who aren't in boardrooms, one of the things...
Sometimes I'd like to join you in a boardroom.
But you're not.
Right.
And one of the things that becomes an issue is the pay level of corporate CEOs, presidents, and this has been an issue in the society for a decade or more. And one of the things that was pointed out with Broadwing was that Richard Ellenberger, whose salary in 2001 or compensation went from 1.8 in 2001 to 4.3 million. At the same time, the company's debt was losses were going from 286 million to 4.2 billion.
Right.
How do you explain? How do you justify that to those of us who are paying the bills?
Yeah. Well, I'll spend a moment with on Rick. Okay, I mean, a lot of people forget. They'd like to hang the Broadwing thing on them, and no one individual does anything all good or all bad. And collectively, we all made that decision. At the same time, Rick was investing in our wireless business, investing in our Zoomtown business, investing in our local business as well. So it wasn't like it was either or. We were doing both. As to Rick's compensation level, that's between him and the board. What I can tell you about my compensation level is that this delevering strategy or paying down the debt is so important to us that I agreed with the board when I was recently given the CEO title that really delevering was started at the top. And so I received no additional compensation, not even a share of stock, for going from being president to CEO. That's incumbent upon management to be in a leadership position and take that role.
Because the argument is that compensation goes up when times are good,
Right.
But the question seems to be sometimes it doesn't go down when times are tough inside a corporation.
Yeah, that's sometimes. I think when you have a new opportunity with a new CEO coming in or something, that the board and management can agree that, look, times are bad, okay, and that leadership has to show the way. And in this particular case, our board is very adamant about and very fair about our ability to pay that debt, to make sure that that's what we do, and therefore all of us, starting with me, have to pay that price.
The city just went through the process of negotiating a deal with Convergys, and the result is quite a bit of investment of state and local tax money with Convergys, was going to result in their purchase of Atrium, where you have at least some significant presence in that building, your company. About how many employees?
Well, we have 100% of that building and half of Atrium 2.
Okay.
We have 11 floors in Atrium 1 and 6 floors in Atrium 2. We have 3,000 total employees, 2,500 of which make their living in Cincinnati, so are taxpayers in Cincinnati. Of that 2,500, 2,000 are downtown. We have West 7th Street as our sort of hardened network operations center, and then Atrium 1 and Atrium 2. As a result of the purchase of Atrium 1 by Convergys, we'll displace about 1,500 people to 2,000 people downtown, and in terms of that's the potential for displacement. So what we have to look about is what are the effective centers of operation that we have there. The three big centers that are going to be affected is corporate staff, my group, treasury, finance, those kinds of guys. That would take 200 to 300 jobs. It would be every bit our intent to leave the headquarters downtown Cincinnati. They call us Cincinnati Bell for a reason. Okay. And we can do that with our existing space at Atrium 2. So this isn't a leverage operation of going to the across the river or outside the city.
What about for the rest of those people?
Right. We're very happy being downtown Cincinnati. Now we have to go from there to what's most effective in terms of, now that we have to leave, where can we go? And we have a call center operation of 600 to 700 people that has to be on a bus line, and it has to have free and available parking, given the economics that we pay people for those jobs. We have a fairly good situation now, but now we got to take those people and understand where we can move them to. We're looking at the McAlpin's building. We're looking at the Convergys Center. We're looking at Norwood. We're looking all places around Cincinnati so that we can understand what most effectively is best for the business. We have not entered discussions with the city or the state, nor would we until we understand what's best for our employees, and then we'll begin the discussions.
But once you have a plan, do you expect some sort of subsidy from the state and or city?
Well, the city has a policy in place now for companies like ours that wish subsidization or new job creation or whatever, and we would effectively follow that the policy. The city can't. You've got the stadium. You've got a lot of different companies. Okay, major companies in Cincinnati that have been around the edges of that policy. At the end of the day, Dan, it's all about the economics. Capital goes where it's welcomed, and it stays where it's well attended to. And the city needs, from my view, rather than playing these one-off situations, the city needs a sound economic development policy that will seek not only to keep businesses in Cincinnati, but in fact create more opportunity.
And do you think this new economic development structure that's going to be headed up by A.G. Lafley is the right direction? Do you think that is going there?
You get big suits like AG involved, and good things are going to happen. And George Schaefer, John Barrett, Phil Cox, our chairman, who is the head of not only Cox Financial but the CBC. These are people who really have the best interest of Cincinnati in mind. Okay, and for a guy like AG, who's
I have to tell you that from the outside, people worry they have the best interest of the corporate community in mind.
Yeah, but on the other hand, someone once said what's good for GM is good for the country. And the fact is that the more money the corporations make, okay, the more money the city makes. It's just a pure matter of economics through taxation.
At what point does regionalism come in? I mean, in my view, I certainly want to keep the corporate headquarters in Cincinnati,
right.
But if a certain unit of Cincinnati Bell moves to Covington or Newport, you service that area, those jobs we're not going to lose those jobs to outside people. What difference does it make?
Well, and we're different, okay, than a Convergys, okay? First of all, our customer base is far different. Everybody in Cincinnati is our customer, and we have to keep that in mind. But second of all, 3,000 employees that many of our employees currently live in Covington and Newport, and they cross the river to come here, so if they go over there, I think it's more interesting in terms of where's the tax base, because if a call center is in Norwood, then they're not paying Cincinnati tax or whatever. So we're very concerned about schools and the infrastructure and the policing, and I think Valerie Lemmy and Charlie have done a pretty good job of making us more informed than we were before of what's the effect downstream of what goes on. But clearly, if we move a call center over to out by the airport, or if we move a sales force from downtown to Kenwood, that's where we all live, work,
Right.
and play, and that's where those people are going to be.
Well, I appreciate your frankness and your coming here this morning, and a lot of other questions we could pursue, and we also, one of the things I want to point out, your company has been very involved with a place like Taft High School.
Yeah,
that's something that as the school season starts, we ought to all pay attention to. So thank you for being here this morning.
Dan, thank you.
And thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the women and the men shaping our community for the future.